Hi, all. Super excited to be chatting with Mattie Isaac from Shogun in our latest edition of How We Tackle People Stuff at Athena. Mattie, I want to say first and foremost, thank you so much for chatting with us. Anytime we have a super cool customer, we want to tell their story, talk with them, get to know them a little bit more, and share it with the greater community. And so I would really love to kick it off just by having you tell us a little bit more about yourself. Mattie, tell me about your company and your role and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. And it's awesome to be here too, Melanie. And I love talking to you at a company like Athena. And y'all are doing some really great work. So just very happy to be here. So as you mentioned, I work for a company called Shogun. So we are a page builder technology. We build high converting, exceptional shopping experiences with the best landing page builder for Shopify and BigCommerce. So I support a global team of about 80 Shogis. We call ourselves Shogis. And I've been at Shogun for about 2.5 years now, and I am the VP of People. So my team consists of a business partner, talent acquisition, and people operation disciplines. And then personally, I have been in the people space for over 15 years and have found myself continually gravitating towards smaller scaling companies such as Shogun. So that's what brings me here to you today.
I love that you all call yourself shogis. That is probably,
Right.
yeah, I think that's my favorite name or nomenclature that I've heard for employees so far. It just has such a good ring to it. And I really vibe with what you're saying about working at smaller companies in particular, right? It just feels like you really get to know everyone firsthand. You get to sort of have your feelers and everything, feeling like you have a sort of maybe a bigger impact. Is there anything in your sort of background or work experience that has really pushed you in that direction?
Yeah, I think that I've done a lot of exploration of what I value day to day in work. And I've come up with the fact that I love to be creative. I love a challenge and I love connection. And I find that these smaller companies are just ripe opportunities to, like you said, really connect with people because you're just able to. And then also the challenge of working in a smaller company is that, your decisions have, well, I found have a lot more exposure too. So, you get it right, get it really right, get it wrong, learn and do it better next time. And then the creativity too. I just find that there's just more space for, making something out of nothing or, iterating on something a little bit faster too. So those three values really I'm able to live and breathe them every day at these smaller companies too. So yeah.
I think it's really important to share and to sort of talk about because the more people, professionals I talk to, the more I realize that sometimes we don't really have a space to share what we're thinking or what we're learning over time, or even the time and space to really reflect on what are the things that we love about the people space, what kinds of things, right? Because sometimes things can feel tough, but maybe it's a specific value that isn't being met at your current company, or maybe it's not that HR isn't for you, it's that a type of HR is more for you, or the type of company or the industry. So I always think it's really cool when people share with me, oh, this is what I realized about what I want to pursue within HR. And for me, I definitely agree. Smaller companies are definitely it just energizes me in everything that I do.
Right. And it's been this really interesting progression for me too professionally, because I used to describe it as like I fell backwards into HR. But really, I found myself, no, I was actually pulled towards it. And the choices I've made in my career thus far have been a lot more deliberate than I have given them credit for too. So here we are.
I really love that spin on it because you're right. Most people do talk about falling into HR. It just happened. It wasn't really super intentional or whatever. And actually, it does sound like sometimes HR pulls you in because there are certain things that are already innate within you, things that you love. And it's sort of like you're magically coming together. So I really love that. I'd love to pivot a little bit into Athena and Shogun. Something that was really exciting and fascinating to me recently was, the idea of consolidation, which I think we can acknowledge is happening in many, many places across the industry, and especially within the people community, whether it's cost savings, whether it's, HR tech overload, but either for the admin or for the employees. And you all at Shogun recently did something similar with Ethena. So you all consolidated with Ethena by moving away from a former LMS provider and moving that into Ethena. So previously you were using Athena's harassment prevention compliance training, and then you added on our in-house LMS. I would love to hear just a little bit more about the thought process that led you to making that decision, especially because sometimes switching away from a previous vendor can be a scary decision. It can come with a lot of implications both for you and for the employees. So how did you all end up making that choice?
Yeah, so I loved how you hit on sort of the operational efficiency. Being a globally distributed, fully remote team, we really have to lean into being as operationally efficient as possible. So yes, the consolidation was a huge part of it. Learning though, and a growth culture is also one of our pillars of our people function too. So we had made a very large investment in a different LMS that we are moving away from, but we really want to make sure that we still have a partner that can support those courses that we've produced thus far and the learning tracks, et cetera. And, as we looked at how our team was utilizing Ethena through the manager dashboard and loving that nudge functionality that you have built in. And we were seeing an uptick in engagement and trainings across teams. And then also looking at our current LMS and seeing a decline in engagement of that system too. We thought, okay, so how can we work with a partner that's been very powerful in terms of increasing engagement and getting those trainings out there too, and do so in a way that consolidates, but also make sure that our employees, our shogis, are having a really good experience, and thus, engaging more and more and more. So as we looked at sort of the core functionality of Ethena, with the integrations, the reporting, learning tracks, the multimedia, and of course the strong customer support, it really felt like a win-win. So we're currently in the process of migrating all of our trainings. We'll see how they get downloaded and what formatting they're in, and how successfully we're able to sort of translate that over. But we're all very excited to be on board with y'all for the LMS functionality.
I love hearing all of that because especially, being on the people side, I think it's really important that we talk about the fact that sometimes we have to create the right metrics to measure how whether or not something is successful, right? And one of those metrics is, completion rate, satisfaction rate, all that stuff. And so you were alluding to the fact that, right, on the other vendor platform, you maybe weren't getting that same level of completion. You all, I believe, have 96% completion rates on Athena so far with our harassment prevention training, which is just, it's wild, especially for a compliance training, right? It's a required training that sometimes employees unfortunately don't want to take. I'm curious from your perspective, what do you think is making the difference? Why do you think that the completion rates have been higher on the Athena side versus, with another vendor perhaps?
Yeah, so I don't have like the metrics at hand here, but when I look at anecdotally getting feedback from new hires about our compliance training, or sort of checking in on listing sessions and asking about the different tooling that we have and trainings we have there, people always have a positive response to the Athena trainings. And I think it has to do with a number of different things. We empower our managers to have a dashboard to look at, okay, are their teams completing these required trainings? But we've also been really good about communicating out what is the cadence, and we've been able to set that up with Athena of when people should expect these trainings. And then you have the automatic nudges too, so you're constantly in people's inboxes. But I think also the trainings that y'all write are great in terms of the UI, the voice too, that the trainings also feel very fresh and relevant. And having sat through and also written some pretty boring corporate compliance trainings, it's definitely a breath of fresh air. So I think that all of those things combined, it really, it just makes the experience of compliance training a lot more enjoyable, and therefore people want to engage with it time and time again.
You touched on so many fascinating points, in particular, two that stood out to me. One is the manager side of things, and the second is the employee experience side of things. On the manager side of things, what I think sometimes we forget on the people side is that we really need the managers to embrace and push these initiatives forward too, right? If it just feels like HR is breathing down your neck, it's so much harder to get that buy-in. And so it's
Right.
really great to hear that your managers are empowered to own that. And it sounds like if I'm sort of like extrapolating a bit, and let me know if I'm wrong here, that managers are actually then doing that and they're following up with their reports and making sure that they're pushing to take the trainings too.
Yeah, yeah. And I'd also say that DEIB is also an integral part of the Shogun experience. So as we strive to create this environment that is, transparent, fair, and equitable, tools like Ethena play a really important role in that employee experience life cycle. So by having that cadence that we have, by allowing and empowering managers to have view into who's completing the trainings, who is not, and continue to iterate the fact that DEIB is one of our pillars, that really sort of connects, I think, technology with employee experience, with empowering managers with the right tools as well to hopefully create that environment too. And it is an important part, is one part of many parts, that it really helps to keep these really important subject matters front of mind, front and center, and woven, quite frankly, into work at Shogun. So it doesn't feel like something separate. It feels like something part of.
I think that's exactly right, and ties in so nicely to that employee experience side of things, right? We constantly on the people side need to be working towards getting employee buy-in, right? And so part of that, I think, is making sure that the initiatives that we put out there are actually engaging, are actually effective. And to your point, weaving in that DEIB aspect of things and making sure that the content shows just how much you do care about this initiative. You care so much that you've invested in not just any harassment prevention training, but a high quality one, right? That really packs a punch, communicates effectively, and empowers everyone across your company to really push that initiative forward. I think it just speaks volumes. So super thrilled that you can do that with Athena. Interestingly enough, you when you came in, you sort of inherited Athena. Is that right? So Athena was right. Okay,
Yeah.
love that. And I always think this is really fascinating because, anytime a new admin takes over within the same company, even things change a little bit, right? Maybe you have your own opinions, your own perspectives. Maybe what worked for the previous admin doesn't work as well for you. I'd love to hear what your experience was adopting Athena in particular, because then after you adopted or inherited it, you then expanded into LMS from Athena. So just talk to me a little bit about what that experience was when you took over Athena as the admin.
Yeah. So one of the big reasons that I decided to join Shogun was that they had made a very early and very meaningful investment in the people space. And that came in the form of the team that I inherited and also the tech stack that I inherited as well. I'm used to coming in and either having a team of two or none or no systems in place. We're all in Google Sheets and we need to get out of this. So I was thrilled. It's like, okay, what sort of opportunities are now available to me by being able to build on top of this already really strong foundation? So when I started to dig through the tech stack, I was really, really surprised at the ease of use of Ethena from both a learner perspective, but also from an admin perspective too. And I've seen over time how the trainings continue to build. You rewrite based upon what's going on in the wider world. So it feels very fresh and relevant. And it doesn't ever feel like you're being talked down to as well in these trainings. You provide really good examples, which they were then tested on too. So you don't feel like you're, sitting in front of the VHS player and watching the corporate speak compliance. It's like, oh, I'm sitting at my computer. I'm able to do this on my own time. And also they're bite-sized too, which I really, really appreciate. And it's relevant too. And I can, recognize if there's a situation going on, in my real life, in my work life, I had the tools from Ethena that I can apply there too. So I was really impressed, and was one of the things that I was like, we're not touching that, it's working. And then I've continually been impressed by the support that y'all have. I mean, it was wonderful meeting you, Melanie, a couple of weeks ago. I always get great feedback from my people outside of things about their experience working with Ethena. Managers always talk about how easy it is to use. And our shogis obviously are participating at high rates as well. So if it ain't broke, right? And I think that once we heard that you were offering this LMS functionality too, and as we started digging more and more into that, we got very excited about the prospect of coming onto your platform for this LMS too. So we're really, like I said, we are in the process of transition, but based upon previous experience, we are certain that it's going to be a great experience moving forward too.
That makes me so happy to hear about how easy on the administrative side it was to take over. I can speak from personal experience. At my last company, we had an LMS and we had such complex rules in place around when assignments went out to who, how to check in. And I remember when I passed the vendor relationship over to the next person on my team, it was just so complicated and convoluted to explain how it was set up, how they could make adjustments if they wanted to. And it sounds like, luckily, you didn't have to worry about that with Ethena, right, which is amazing. And I'm also really happy to hear about the relevance piece. I remember, so one of my favorite nudges, as we call them at Ethena, these sort of micro learnings, from, I believe it's from the harassment prevention training, is actually it's a text exchange between people and how that text goes awry. And I think that's so relevant because I remember immediately after COVID, everyone going remote, I had a manager at another company who had asked, what are we doing to educate people about harassment in the virtual world, which of course continues, unfortunately. Going virtual doesn't immediately end or completely eradicate the possibility that something could go wrong. And so I really do love that Ethena does incorporate these super relevant, fresh, relatable experiences. I think, to your point, having the employees really enjoy that and then continue to buy into it is just so powerful. Let me ask, I'm curious on the impact side, what has this looked like for you? Whether as an admin, how has this impacted your day-to-day or your ability to achieve on goals? Or from the employee perspective, how has this impacted them?
I'd say from the admin side, it's compliance training is definitely like a check the box. You have to do it. So I think it's really nice that that partnering with Ethena, we're able to check that box and do so in a way that it's taken care of. It's going to be relevant, applicable trainings that you're putting in front of your employees. I think the impact for our managers, like I said before, is the empowerment, the ease of use of the system so they can go onto their dashboard and just see who is really engaging, who is not. We've also made it clearer to our managers too, just sort of the expectations of being in leadership at Shogun. And part of that responsibility comes into their own engagement with people programs, but also their team's engagement too. So there's an extra oomph to get on there and know that hey, part of their performance evaluation will be based upon the engagement in things like our Ethena training. And I think that ultimately though, from, the employee experience standpoint, because it's present, it's continually present in people's inbox. We talk about it a lot in our different meetings. We've done really, really thorough research around building an inclusive environment. We recently partnered with a company that acted as our chief diversity officer and created a 3-year strategy around increasing DEIB at Shogun, knowing that Ethena is playing a really, really important role in that and showing to people that it is integral, this type of staying on top of what's out there. And it's not just because we have to be compliant, it's doing what's right and treating people in a respectful way. And you're doing so in a way that is, like I keep saying, relevant, but it just makes it feel like you can pick it up and place it into your everyday. And if you should have a situation where you are experiencing harassment or you're a bystander, you have the language and the tools available to properly address that and to make sure that we're really living this core pillar of DIB at Shogun.
I I love all of that. You can really feel your passion for people and DEIB and everything that you say. It's just wonderful. Like your face lights up while you talk about it. So thank you
A
so
lot of
much.
energy. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much for being so open with us and sharing that. As we wrap up and sort of lead into our final question, one of the things I'd love to think about and address and explore is, the reality that right now, most people in the people space are having to make some tough decisions and compromises and trying to balance what it is that they're trying to achieve with budgetary needs, with tech stack needs. And so I'm curious for anyone who is in the people space right now and is reevaluating their current vendor relationships and is also at the same time trying to make sure that these really important initiatives like DEIB, compliance, employee experience don't fall to the wayside. What experience do you have for them as they start to go through these exercises?
I think that it starts off with what kind of employee experience are you trying to build, number one. And I think that all things can branch from there, obviously, with budget in mind. So you have that articulated, building out your list of requirements. So, of course, what do you need to stay compliant? What functionality is important? Will your systems talk to each other too? And where are those opportunities for consolidation as well? And keeping all of those things in mind. Just because, budget is going down doesn't mean that you can't find other creative ways to really build that employee experience that you've articulated and been able to build off on. But I think it's really starting with that and then building your list of requirements from there.
Mattie, thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom with us. I am confident that everyone listening in is going to get so much from this. I really can't thank you enough. I love having you as a customer, love having you as a fellow people partner, and just really, really want to thank you again for sharing your thoughts with us on the call today.
Anytime. Ethena team, keep up the good work. Melanie, always a pleasure to see you. So thank you for the time.
Thank you.